и создали мировую державу, наше Отечество. Добились таких триумфов, которые вдохновляют нас и сегодня. Мы уверенно смотрим вперед, планируем свое будущее, намечаем и уже реализуем новые проекты и программы, которые призваны сделать наше развитие еще более динамичным, еще более мощным. Мы единый и великий народ, и вместе преодолеем все преграды, воплотим в жизнь все задуманное. Вместе победим.
This is my video update on this Tuesday midday, May the 7th. Let's talk about some news. And yesterday we had the news that Russia will be conducting nuclear drills, tactical nuclear drills, non-strategic nuclear drills, because the collective West, specifically the UK and France, they continue to escalate Macron's strategic ambiguity. So Russia is going to send a message by conducting these non-strategic nuclear drills. And then yesterday, Russia summoned the French ambassador to Russia and the UK ambassador to Russia to the Russian Foreign Ministry building, which is at the end of Arbat, right next to the Smolenskaya metro stop. Is that right? Yeah, I think that's right. And incredible building. One of the seven sisters that Stalin built. Do I have that right? I think I have that right. But yeah, they summoned the UK ambassador and the French ambassador, and they were in the Russian Foreign Ministry building for about 30 to 40 minutes. They left the Russian Foreign Ministry building. They did not speak to the media. They got in their cars and they drove away. Whoa, look at that. Oh man. That was a huge lizard. Cyprus has a lot of lizards. If you don't like lizards, Cyprus is not for you. But they're friendly lizards. They're nice. They're nice lizards. Yeah, so they got in their cars. They drove off. No statements, no comments. But after the meeting, we got a statement from the French Foreign Ministry in France. They issued a statement. This is right after the French ambassador was summoned to the Russian Foreign Ministry building. Right after that meeting, we get a statement from France, the Foreign Ministry there, saying that France will not send troops to Ukraine, does not plan to send troops to Ukraine, and the reporting about French Foreign Legion troops in Ukraine is bogus. It is disinformation. That is the statement that the French Foreign Ministry released right after the meeting with the French ambassador at the Foreign Ministry building in Moscow. Coincidence? I think not. I think not. Because we know that the Russians, the Russian Foreign Ministry, they gave the French ambassador and the UK ambassador a warning, an ultimatum. Stop your escalation or else. That was the warning and the ultimatum that was given to the French ambassador and the UK ambassador. So France is now saying no troops are going to be sent to Ukraine, at least the foreign ministry in France. is saying no troops to Ukraine, French troops to Ukraine. And the story about French Foreign Legion, not true. The 100 French Foreign Legion troops and advisors in Ukraine is disinformation. Do you guys believe that? I don't. I don't. I know that. I think we all kind of know. We all kind of know that there are French mercenaries in Ukraine. There are collective West mercenaries in Ukraine. I think we all know that. French Foreign Legion, troops and advisors? Maybe, probably, perhaps. But whatever Russia told the French ambassador, he called up Paris and he said, we need to walk this thing back. We need to de-escalate, or at least make it look like we're de-escalating, the appearance of de-escalation. Of course, the story about the French Foreign Legion troops, Alexander was talking about this in his video update yesterday. This story might have been fed to Asia Times by someone, some entity, maybe a 3-letter entity. Maybe they fed it to Asia Times so that they could see Russia's reaction if there was news that there were 100 French troops and advisors right on the front lines in Slavyansk. So that story could have been fed to Asia Times. But Peskov, when he was asked about, the Kremlin spokesman, when he was asked about the 100 troops of the French Foreign Legion in Slavyansk, he was kind of surprised. His statement was something along the lines of, we as Russia, we don't have any information about this story, and we need to look into it. So this could have been some sort of psyop to gauge Russia's reaction to foreign troops entering Ukraine and getting right up there on the front lines. But whatever the case, whether this was a story that was fed to Asia Times in order to see how Russia reacts, or if there are French Foreign Legion troops in Slavyansk, whatever's going on, whatever Russia told the French ambassador, the statement came from the foreign minister real quick, from the foreign ministry in France real quick, that there are going to be no troops in Ukraine, no French troops are going to Ukraine, and any talk about French Foreign Legion troops in Slavyansk in Ukraine is bogus. So, I mean, they came out with a statement real quick, which means that, at least for now, at least as we are talking right now, it looks like France got the message from Russia. They are taking Russia's warnings seriously, at least for now. This could change in 24 hours, of course. But let's go this way, up and around. But that was France. That was France. And the UK ambassador was also summoned to the Russian Foreign Ministry building. And, you know, it's interesting because the UK meeting, we actually have a readout from the Russian Foreign Ministry. For the meeting with the French ambassador, there was no statement from the Russian Foreign Ministry, just a statement from the French Foreign Ministry. But for the UK, we actually have a statement from Russia, which says that Ambassador Casey, UK Ambassador Casey, was warned that the response to Ukrainian strikes using British weapons on Russian territory could be any British military facilities and equipment on the territory of Ukraine and beyond, the Russian Foreign Ministry said in a statement following the meeting. So I think that's interesting that for France, we didn't get this type of statement from the Russian Foreign Ministry. But for the UK, we got this statement. So this is talking about Cameron's comments the other day, where he said, when he was in Kiev meeting with Zelensky, getting a whiff of that Zelensky number 5. What happened is that when here's what happened. Here's what happened. When you're around Zelensky and Zelensky number 5, from what I understand, the scent of Zelensky number 5, the odor, it has an effect on testosterone levels, and it ups your testosterone levels. And so when Cameron was in Kiev meeting with Zelensky and smelling that Zelensky number 5, he started to feel very tough because his testosterone levels were really jacked up. So he started to feel very, very tough. And that's when he came out with that statement saying that British weapons are going to be used to attack Russian territory. Anyway, after he made that statement, Reuters picked it up right away and they ran a story on what Cameron had said. And then Reuters had to retract that story. Someone told Reuters, don't run with this statement from Cameron. This is dangerous stuff that he's putting out there. But it was too late. It was too late. The story was published by Reuters. Reuters retracted it, but by then, all kinds of media outlets started to run with Cameron's statement about British weapons being used to attack Russia. Anyway, that's what this is talking about with this statement to the UK ambassador, Ambassador Casey. Basically, going off of Cameron's statements, if British weapons are used to attack Russia, Russian territory, that includes the Kirch Bridge, that includes the Crimea Bridge. If UK weapons are used, then we, as Russia, reserve the right to retaliate, and we are going to retaliate and hit British military facilities inside Ukraine and beyond, outside of Ukraine. And Russia has a lot of targets, British targets that they can go after. They have a lot inside Ukraine and outside Ukraine. And I think this warning, this ultimatum from Russia, worked, at least for now. For now, it seems to be working because today you have all kinds of media outlets in the UK. For example, The Independent running with this story. Satellite images show Russia no longer using Crimean Bridge to supply troops in Ukraine. Well, isn't that something, huh? Coincidence? No, I think not. No chance. All of a sudden, satellite images. Look, these satellite images are showing that the Crimean Bridge is not supplying troops. It's not being used to supply troops. Look, the satellite images are showing us this. Wow. Well, that changes everything. That changes everything. Let's stop talking about using our weapons or allowing Ukraine to use our Storm Shadow, Scalp missiles, ATACMS. Let's not talk about Ukraine using those long-range missiles to destroy the Crimea Bridge. Just stop talking about it, because the Crimea Bridge, because of these satellite images that we just got today. We just got these satellite images today, right this minute. They show that the Kirch Bridge is not being used for military purposes anymore. The Russians are moving all their supplies over rail that they just built, over land. Of course, we've known about this for a couple of months now. The Duran, Alexander, myself, Brian Berletic has been talking about this on multiple video updates that he's made about supplying Crimea, whether it's by boat, whether it's by plane, whether it's through the bridge, but military supplies which go right over rail, over a railway system that they built. There is no need to use the Kirch Bridge to move military supplies to the front lines. But, you know, the satellite images, the Collective West just got those satellite images yesterday, right after the ultimatum was given to the UK ambassador. Isn't that something? Isn't that something? Grant Shapps the defense minister, was doing TikTok videos just a week ago talking about the power that is the Storm Shadow missile, right? And we were getting all kinds of news reports talking about how the long-range missiles, the Scalps and the Storm Shadows and the ATACMS, are going to be used by the Zelensky regime to destroy the Kerch Bridge. And if you destroy the bridge in Crimea, well, it's like destroying a piece of Putin, right? You knock out the Crimea bridge, and it's like you weaken a piece of Putin. Putin's body, Putin's soul gets destroyed. That's what they were telling us. Now, forget about the Kerch Bridge. We don't need to deal with the Kerch Bridge. The ultimatum, the warning, for now, is working. For now. This could all change. And so Russia also gave an F-16 warning. So they do the nuclear drills, the tactical nuke drills. This is all yesterday. Nuke drills. French ambassador to the foreign ministry. UK ambassador to the foreign ministry. They get their warnings, their ultimatums. As Russia, we've had enough of your escalation. No more. And we get a warning. We get a warning about the F-16s, because there's so much talk about the wonder weapon that is going to be the F-16s. And so we got that warning yesterday as well from the Russian Foreign Ministry. We will consider any F-16 in Ukraine as a carrier of nuclear weapons. Basically, the Russian Foreign Ministry is sending out the message that all F-16s will be destroyed, whether they are piloted by Ukrainian trained pilots or if they're piloted by NATO pilots or ex-NATO contracted pilots. Whoever is flying these F-16s, they will be shot down, they will be destroyed, and I am also thinking that Russia's warning also means that any airfields where the F-16s are taking off from, because they can carry nuclear weapons, these airfields will also be destroyed. So that's the message with regards to the F-16s. And this brings us to the United States and the Democrat House leader, the minority leader, Mr. Jeffries, who was on 60 Minutes. And he said during this interview that we can't let Ukraine lose. The United States cannot let Ukraine lose. Kiev cannot fall. And in order to prevent Kiev from falling to Russia, U.S. troops may have to enter the conflict in Ukraine. Basically, Jeffries, to be honest, he wasn't talking so much about U.S. boots. I mean, he mentioned it. He said U.S. boots may have to go to Ukraine. But basically what Jeffries was really saying is we have to continue to give money to the Zelensky regime. Because if we stop giving money to the Zelensky regime, well, then all of us in the political system become a little bit poor. No, that's not what he said. That's what he meant, but that's not what he said. He said we need to continue to give money to Project Ukraine, because if the money stops, then the Zelensky regime might collapse and we can't let Russia win this conflict. And if we think that Ukraine is going to collapse, well, then we just might put U.S. boots on the ground. So in order to prevent U.S. troops from going to Ukraine, let's keep on giving Ukraine hundreds and hundreds of billions of dollars. That was basically what Jeffries was saying. He was making the case to continue to funnel more money to Project Ukraine. And why not? Because for the last 10 or 15 years, Ukraine has been a gravy train for the political class in the United States. Why would they want this to end? So that was basically what Jeffries was saying. I don't think he was being serious about U.S. boots on the ground. He said it, but I don't think he was serious about it. The other thing that Jeffries was doing was he was building the pro-Putin narrative in Congress. He said that there are forces in Congress which are pro-Putin. So that was another thing that he was doing. The elections, and they're going to have to start building this Russia is controlling the Republicans and is controlling the America First MAGA Republicans, and Putin controls Trump. And so he was building up that narrative as well, that there are pro-Putin factions in Congress that would like the money to stop flowing to Ukraine, and we can't let the pro-Putin factions in Congress win. From CBS News, Democratic leader Jeffries, pro-Putin faction in GOP delayed Ukraine aid. There is a growing pro-Putin faction in the Republican Party that does not want to support Ukraine and believes for some reason that Russia is not an enemy of the United States of America. That's what Jeffries was trying to do in this 60 Minutes interview. Keep the money flowing to Ukraine, and let's start up with this Putin controls Trump, the Republican Party, or some of the Republican Party nonsense. Let's start this up again. That was the main reason for his statement. And then he threw in U.S. boots on the ground. The Biden White House, the State Department, they came out with a statement saying that Biden is clear. There will be no U.S. troops in Ukraine. That is what the U.S. State Department said right after this interview with Jeffries aired. So let's now talk about Macron and Xi and Ursula. Macron and Xi and Ursula. Ursula's always hanging out with Macron when he's meeting with Xi Jinping. Huh? Isn't that interesting? You know what Ursula's there for, right? She's there to babysit Macron. The globalists, the deep state, they trust Macron, but up to a certain point. The globalists, they trust Macron up to a certain point. He's a good puppet, but every now and then, he he strays away from the globalist cause, and so you have to send Ursula in there with him, and that's what Ursula was there for. She was there to make sure that Macron didn't do anything or say anything that would go against the globalist, neocon, neolib, war machine agenda. So that's why she is always there hanging out with Xi and Macron. And sure enough, Macron, he flip-flopped, right? He started the meeting. Allegedly, he was going to take a very hard line with China. That was all the talk was going to be, Macron taking a tough stance against Xi and China. And towards the end of the meeting, Macron was coming out with statements like, one second. We are not in a state of war with Russia or the Russian people. We have no desire for regime change in Moscow. We are at a historic point with threats at unprecedented levels, and the risk of fragmentation is significant. We respect the ancient ties between China and Russia, as well as the efforts made over decades to stabilize these relations. Yeah, statements by French President Macron after meeting Chinese leader Xi Jinping in Paris. Yeah, so he meets with Xi, and he was going to take a tough stance. And at the end of the meeting, he comes out with statements like this, which is kind of what happened when Macron visited Beijing, right? After he visited Beijing, he was very much on side with China, and the collective West was furious at Macron. And they turned Macron around within 24 hours, right? And so those were the statements from Macron. And he'll flip-flop tomorrow. He'll make statements about how China is evil and it's the number one threat to the collective West, or the number two threat next to Russia and the Putin, and he'll just flip-flop. But for now, Macron is talking some sense. For now. Ursula, she made some statements as well. She talked about how Ukraine is an existential threat for Europe. It's an existential. The conflict in Ukraine is existential for Europe. It's not only existential for Ukraine, but it's existential for Europe. That is why the Putin and Russia cannot be allowed to win. I don't know how she comes to that conclusion, but anyway, it is now existential for Europe, according to Ursula. And she talked about how it's imperative that Beijing tries to convince Russia to back off from this conflict. She mentioned that as well. And then she talked a lot about dual-use goods and how China is sending washing machine chips to Russia. And she also talked about China's overcapacity problem and how it's the overcapacity of China that is leading to Europe's deindustrialization. So yeah, that was Ursula talking nonsense. Mr. Xi, I'm telling you, you are sending washing machines to Russia and they're removing the chips and using them in the fighter jets. I'm telling you, Mr. Xi, I'm telling you right now, that is what Russia is doing. You must see this. They are using washing machine chips. Shovels. They're using shovels, President Xi. You're sending Russia shovels and they're using the shovels to defeat the NATO proxy. She's looking at Ursula. He's probably looking at Ursula going, man, she is cuckoo crazy. Why is she always hanging around us? That's what Xi Jinping's saying. Why is she always hanging around us? Can we get rid of her? Oh boy. So yeah, that's the meeting that took place in Paris. Oh, Macron also wants Xi Jinping to tell the countries of the world, the bad actors, the bad countries of the world, to try and get a truce during the Olympics. No more fighting during the Olympic Games. And Xi Jinping was like, okay, that's fine. But what's he going to do? Go to Russia and say, you need to freeze the conflict in Ukraine so that Macron can have his Olympic Games? Why would Russia do that? Why? Ukraine's not going to do that. But why would Russia do that? Is Russia participating in the Olympics? No. Are their athletes going to be able to compete in the Olympic Games under the Russian flag? No. So why would Russia do Macron any Olympic game favors? Doesn't make any sense. But Xi Jinping was like, yeah, whatever, okay. Okay, let's get a truce for the Olympics, whatever. So we had that story as well. Oh boy, what else? What else should we talk about? So Putin's going to be inaugurated, I believe today. I think today is Putin's inauguration. And the interesting part about his inauguration, well, the U.S. is going to send a representative. That's interesting. Or will they? No, France is going to send a representative. I think they're going to send their ambassador. That's interesting. Germany said no. I don't know what the U.S. is going to do. Let me know in the comments down below. Is the U.S. going to send their ambassador? Are they going to send a representative to Putin's inauguration? Miller, the spokesman for the State Department, said that the United States does recognize Putin as the president of Russia. They say that the election was not fair and blah, 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 all of this stuff that they usually say about Russia. But he did come out and say, we see Putin as the president of Russia, which is more than the European Union, which doesn't recognize Putin as the president of Russia. Anyway, France is going to send someone to the inauguration, which is an interesting sign. Either the inauguration or Victory Day, or both. But look, Putin is going to be inaugurated today, 7th of May. I believe it is today. If I'm wrong about that, well, then I'm wrong about that. But there might be a shakeup in the Kremlin. And I don't even know if shakeup is the right word. It could be a new government, because Putin is going to serve a new term. Usually what happens is you get a new cabinet. Makes sense. This happens in every country. Whenever you have a new president or prime minister, you do get some changes in the cabinet, in the makeup of his government. And one of the positions that we could be seeing a change in is the defense ministry. There's a lot of talk that Shoigu may be on the way out, and someone new, someone younger could be on the way in. I don't know. That's a possibility. We'll see. We will see. There was a point in time, I think Putin's last election, where Lavrov was signaling that he needs to retire. He's also, he's been there for a while, and he just wanted to take some time off. But then all of the tension and the escalation with the West and Ukraine started to take effect, and Putin told Lavrov, "We need you now more than ever because you're the best in the business," and Lavrov stayed on. So I'm not saying this is going to happen, but don't be surprised if maybe Lavrov decides to hang it up. I don't think so. But there was a time when Lavrov was talking about retirement. Just saying. There could be some cabinet changes, some changes in the Kremlin because of Putin's new term. There are going to be shakeups in Ukraine, according to Russian intel. Now, this is coming from Russian intel, so we don't know if this is some sort of a psyop or if this is the real deal, but we are getting news from Russian intel that Zelensky may be on the way out when his official term as president ends, which is on May 21st or May 23rd. And Klitschko was in France the other day. That's interesting. Perhaps Klitschko was auditioning for the role of president. Some people are saying that Poroshenko is a front runner, but I don't think so. I don't think they're going to go with Poroshenko. Poroshenko is now on the wanted list, so there's no chance of Poroshenko participating in any surrender or negotiation talks. Yermak is a possibility. Remember, I talked about Yermak, Zelensky's entertainment lawyer, a couple of weeks ago when he was put on Time Magazine's 100 influential person list. I found that to be very curious to have Yermak, Zelensky's entertainment lawyer. Why would he be on one of Time Magazine's 100 important people lists? So maybe Yermak is going to take over for Zelensky. And then, of course, Zaluzhny. Everyone talks about Zaluzhny. And I think Zaluzhny in the latest polling is still the most popular potential president for Ukraine. He's leading in all the polls. So according to Russian intel, we could be seeing a shakeup in Ukraine as well. Though I don't think so. I think it's going to be very difficult for the collective West and the Europeans to explain away an Zelensky departure, given that just a couple of months ago, Zelensky was Churchill, right? From Churchill to no longer president of Ukraine. I don't know how they'll spin it, but they're good with spinning things. So we could be seeing a shakeup in Kiev. And finally, before we get to a clown world, I talked about the possible incursion into Rafah yesterday and the negotiations that were taking place and breaking down between Hamas and Israel. And the reports are that Israel has indeed started operations in Rafah. We actually got reports yesterday that Hamas, according to Al Jazeera, Hamas had agreed to the ceasefire terms. That's what Al Jazeera was reporting yesterday. And then we got reports from Israel, which claimed that Hamas agreeing to the terms is a no-go, it's nonsense. And then we got the news that Israel was going to start the operations into Gaza. And that all took place yesterday. So that is the news out of Israel. It does look like an incursion into Rafah is starting up, which would mean that the negotiations have collapsed. Even if Hamas has agreed to the ceasefire, Israel is going to still move forward with the incursion into Rafah. All right, let's do a clown world, and we will wrap this video up. And I think this is one of the the most interesting clown worlds I've done in a long time. And I don't know if this, I was thinking, is this a clown world? Can this be categorized as a clown world? And I decided, you know what? Let me put this story in the clown world segment. And it has to do with the ICC. And US senators, I believe 12 US senators, they sent a threatening letter to the ICC warning the ICC and members, family members of those on the ICC serving in the International Criminal Court, that if they issue an arrest warrant towards Netanyahu and Israeli officials, then the United States would go after the judges in the ICC as well as their friends and families. An absolutely incredible warning, a letter. This was a letter signed by 12 US senators towards the ICC. United States Senate issues warning to the International Criminal Court: target Israel and we will target you. If you move forward with the measures indicated in the report, we will move forward to end all American support for the ICC, sanction your employees and associates, and bar you and your families from the United States. The letter says, you have been warned. Bro, what the F, man? What kind of mafia tactics are these? The letter also talks about how the ICC hasn't put an arrest warrant out for Xi Jinping. Did I not say this? Did I not say this in a video update? I was joking around when I was talking about the International Rules-Based Order Handbook. I was joking around where I said, okay, handbook says ICC for Putin, good. ICC for any leaders in Africa, yes, that's okay. And then I was joking around and I said, ICC warrant for China, Xi Jinping. And I said, coming soon. And that was a joke. But in this letter, it talks about how the ICC has not issued an arrest warrant for Xi Jinping. Let me get to this section. This is a direct quote from the letter from 12 senators threatening ICC judges. Nor have you issued an arrest warrant for the genocidal General Secretary of the People's Republic of China, Xi Jinping, or any other Chinese officials. So this letter is an open threat to the ICC from U.S. senators. Mitch McConnell, big surprise. Tom Cotton, big surprise. I believe Marco Rubio also signed this. Big surprise. Bro, what is up with that, man? What kind of mafia freaking tactics are these? But, you know, the Zelensky curse. I also said this the other day. The Zelensky curse is hitting the International Criminal Court. You have been hit, ICC, with the Zelensky curse. You reap what you sow, International Criminal Court. And I'll tell you why I say that. I say that because the International Criminal Court, for lack of a better word, they, I don't want to be crude. I don't want to be crude here, because I try to keep this channel, I try to keep things polite and PG, but the ICC was doing you-know-what to the collective West and to the United States when it agreed to go after Russian President Vladimir Putin over the bogus, ridiculous claims about children. We all know the story, which has now been completely debunked by German police. German officials have effectively debunked this narrative. But anyway, they decided to be political and to play it political. They've done this for many decades, by the way, going back to Yugoslavia, but the Putin case was like right in everyone's face. And they decided to go along and issue that arrest warrant for Putin, and everyone was laughing. The US was laughing. these U.S. senators, McConnell and Rubio and Cotton, they were laughing and they were singing the praises of the ICC, and Europe was singing the praises of the ICC. And you see, they're issuing an arrest warrant for Putin, and the ICC is a force for good, and all of this stuff, all of this nonsense. And the ICC could do no wrong. And now, 1 year later, the very people that coerced you or forced you or whatever, convinced you to issue that ridiculous warrant against Putin, those very people are now threatening the ICC, and not only the ICC, but your friends and your family in an open letter. You can't make this stuff up. Anyway, how are we doing on time? You guys want to stick with me for one more quick story? I don't even know the background of this story too well, to be quite honest, but a judge of a court in Poland, Thomas Schmidt, he defected to Belarus. Defected. He's seeking asylum in Belarus. He gave a press conference in Minsk the other day. The lawyer who previously headed the legal department of the National Council of Judges said that due to a disagreement with policies and actions of the Polish authorities, who under the influence of the United States and Britain are leading the country to war, he was persecuted and was forced to leave his homeland. That's what I know about this story. There's some, I think his wife is mixed in this story somehow, or there's some, I don't even know. There's some girl or some wife or something that's mixed into this story, and some alleged corruption or some statements that are being made by the judge or people around the judge. I don't even know, but I'm just reading you what I believe this is from TASS. Anyway, the interesting part about this story is that you have a judge in Poland seeking asylum in Belarus. With Lukashenko giving a press conference. Oh boy. Interesting times we live in, huh? Dangerous times, scary times, but interesting times. And we will get through all of this madness. Believe me, we will make it through. That is the video, everybody. TheDuran.locals.com. We are on Rumble, ODYSEE, BitChute, Telegram, Rockfin, and Twitter X. And go to the Duran shop. Pick up some limited edition merch. The link is in the description box down below. Take care.